Kalani at his core is such like a Lavelle disciple and wants to do things the right. I mean, heck, he wouldn't even kick a field goal at the end of last game when it was the obvious choice because he's so like grounded in trying to like do right to people and to be kind. If he leaves though, he's not going to be a Lavelle. He's going to be a Lane Kiffin.
Hello and welcome to the Aptive Podcast Studio. This is the Loyal Cougars Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Edmonds. Once again, alongside Tosh Baggatosh. Tosh, how was your Thanksgiving week and weekend?
It was fabulous. Spent time with family. Watched BYU scare me for the first bit and then make me at peace the rest of the game.
Which, basketball or football?
Both. Yeah, we are the second half Cougs this year in all sports.
Yeah.
But then it was just crazy. The stress of we knew which games we wanted to break our way to help us, and we went 0 for 5, and a lot of them were close, so it was kind of a crazy weekend.
Yeah, it's wild to think that BYU went 3-0 in football, in basketball, right, combined. They beat some pretty good basketball teams. I know Dayton's not considered necessarily a major school, but they're probably a tournament team, right?
Yeah.
And so you win those two games. It's a great outcome. You win this kind of mini, tournament in Orlando. Then you for football, you win your 11th game. It's, potentially the best overall season since what, in decades, right? At least maybe 2020 Zach Wilson, but
it's better than that one. I think this is our best season since 1996.
But it feels still so this week. As we're recording this on a Monday, right? We just finished this great weekend of football and basketball, and it still feels just kind of somber. And we'll talk kind of reasons why, but and I don't mean to start out that way. It was a great win, right? Like it was. Let's talk about the positives. Like it was a great win against UCF, and I'm encouraged that BYU was able to react to what was probably the worst possible start they could have mustered up against a pretty bad UCF team at Lavelle Edwards Stadium on senior night. I think the way they responded was a positive, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they showed tenacity and they've showed that all year.
Yeah.
This team's never given up, and many times we were down and came back. But at the same time, there was a heck of a lot of pressure on this game, and I felt that going into it. I mean, last week I took some grief that I said I was worried about this because I knew UCF had some players, and they gave some good teams tough games, and just the pressure of the moment and PTSD of us losing to Kansas last year and looking horrible in the first half against ASU last year. I did not think we responded to the big pressure at the end of the season last year, but guess what? We did this year, and that's what matters.
Yeah. So those are the positives. Let's take a step back real quick and talk about this week's drop. Obviously, True Wear Services is the power, the engine of our Cougar Board merch store. We have a drop every week. This week's drop includes, let's go through this list here, the True Blue Couch BYU hat. This is kind of the blue variation. We've seen this before in a different color. This LDS foyer couch material. You got it in a youth size, and then Tosh over there has an adult size, so that comes in both sizes.
It's cool because it's a statement piece, but since it's blue, you could it's game ready. You could absolutely rock this to a game.
Absolutely. All right, we got the Royal Blue Stadium tee. This has Lavelle Edwards Stadium on it. As a graphic, it says Lavelle Edwards Stadium, and it says site of 272 Cougar wins and counting.
Nice.
I imagine that's going to change Game
hopefully
1 of next week, right?
Yeah.
So get it today while it's still relevant.
And then we have the Provo Cougars crew neck. And so, again, we got a picture of an actual real Cougar. And good-looking shirt. Black. It feels real soft. That's what you're not getting from listening or viewing is this material is not your father's T-shirt material. This is really, really nice, new, fancy stuff.
My father's going to take offense to that, probably. He's going to text me today. By the way, we have been giving away these some of these items in our drop. Last week, we gave away quite a few things. So our winners of last week's merch giveaway were at the JoJo 33399. No, I'm not stuttering. At Kyle Stenson, at Eliminate 2566, at BYU FTB, and at Mr. Eric J. Harris. If you want to win any of our giveaway items this week, just head on over to YouTube, like, subscribe, leave us a comment so we can reach out to you. Also, if you are a winner of one of this week's giveaway items or last week's giveaway items, email us at help@cougarboard.com and we'll get your address and send that over to you. Okay, I think we'll get into the UCF game a little bit more because I think that was, somewhat big news last week. For some reason, we had bigger news. Not for some reason, but interestingly enough, ahead of a Big 12 championship game after an 11-win season against, beating UCF, we still have news that's bigger than what happened on the field and what's going to happen on the field this week or next week, and that is Kalani Sitake.
Yeah, it was the talk of church yesterday. It was the talk. I was getting texts. I was getting people talking to me about it in between classes. And it was my whole Sunday was BYU Cougar fans melting down about Kalani to Penn State. Does it have legs? Is it true? Everything I'm hearing is it absolutely has legs. That there is some real intense conversations happening between Penn State and Kalani, as well as Kalani back to BYU and the BYU athletic department brass trying to see, hey, can we figure this out?
Yeah.
And who would have expected that right now, right before the biggest game of the year?
Yeah, this is not a rumor, right? What we know, at least from who I've talked to, and I don't know who you've talked to, but what we know is that Penn State, and there have been reports nationally, right? This is not a little known secret, right? Is that Penn State is showing interest in Kalani, right? I don't know if they've given him an offer. I've heard numbers, and I can share some of those, but they are interested in Kalani. The other guy they're interested is the James Madison coach. I think it's DeBoer. And so this is real. This is not just a rumor. This is not just Kalani shopping around. And I kind of want to give a little bit of a backstory. So just to kind of take a step back of what Kalani has done at BYU and the extension/offers he's received in the past. Kalani's base salary is, I think arguably one of the worst in the Big 12. Bottom half. We'll say bottom half. Now, if you think that's earned, if you think he's earned more, that's kind of up to you. That's, the listener can come up to that conclusion themselves. He's making roughly what Scott Frost makes it at UCF, right? So Kalani, and a lot of this is going to be kind of just like hearsay, right? I've talked to people who have talked to people who have talked to people who have talked to Kalani, right? So
because BYU being a private university, that you never really know, but people know. I mean, there's people that do know, and humans talk.
Kalani knows, right?
Correct.
Like so there's people, right? And I don't want to obviously I'm not going to talk about sources. You don't do that, right? You're not going to burn people. So what I know is that Kalani, at least 90% know, is that Kalani doesn't feel satisfied or happy with the way he is being treated in terms of contract, in terms of pay, in terms of length of these contracts. So when I say that, what I mean is he wants to be at BYU, right? He is a BYU guy. I think he has willingly taken less money where he could have made more money. I think he could have made more money at Oregon last year, right? And he didn't. He decided to stay at BYU, and he signed an extension last year, but the extension was weak, and it wasn't what he fully wanted, right? So what I mean by that is he got what he wanted for his staff. I think last year it was, hey, I can't retain assistants. I can't bring in assistants if you're not going to let me pay them. And so he fought really hard for his assistant coaches last year, and he got the money for them. He didn't take a pay raise during last year's extension. He took a little bit of when they say extension, and it was a long-term extension. Yeah, it was a somewhat long-term extension, but it came with some stipulations and some, quote-unquote options, right, on the back end that wasn't truly what Kalani wanted. He wanted a long-term, maybe up to 10 years commitment from BYU and didn't get it. And he also didn't get a pay raise. So you can say, well, he got what he wanted last year and BYU paid him what he wanted last year. It's just not, it's not fully true. Now, did he get an extension? Yes. Did he get his assistants paid, which is what he primarily asked for? Yes. But does he still today feel like he is worth more? Yeah. And I think Penn State is kind of showing him that. And by the way, when I say him, I think it's really his agent, right? I think he's getting this advice from his agent who's saying, look, dude, you're worth $8, $9, $10 million, and here's a team that's willing to offer you this. Let's at least play this out and see if you can get this job and see if you are worth that much. And if you're not, you can stay at BYU. But I think the way this is playing out with Penn State is that he is seeing higher dollar amounts than he's getting at BYU. And he's testing the waters. And it's not that he doesn't want to be at BYU. It's that he just feels like he is worth more.
Here's my kind of emptying the noggin on it a little bit on both sides. One, I do think Kalani is worth more than he's getting currently paid. So I understand that. I also, though, kind of have to weigh it with Kalani at his core is such like a Lavelle disciple and wants to do things the right. I mean, heck, he wouldn't even kick a field goal at the end of last game when it was the obvious choice because he's so like grounded in trying to like do right to people and to be kind. It also, though, just feels odd that it seems like every time he has a good season, he goes in full leverage mode. And again, maybe that's justified and that's what's even needed for the team and the program. I'm just kind of weighing these two things. The other side of it is, well, I'll stay on that side. If he leaves, though, he's not going to be a Lavelle. He's going to be a Lane Kiffin. And so you can't have it both ways because the fans, they want what's best for their program and they're loyal to BYU. And so it's not like he'll have this Lavelle exit. At best, he'd have Bronco. But it could go worse because of the timing and the situation. And if he stays, he absolutely could be another Lavelle, where long-term, beloved statues, his name is thought of with grace and a smile for the rest of BYU fandom's lives. And then on the other side, the one wrinkle in this that's interesting is Jay Hill. Mm-hmm. Because Kalani and the BYU program took a huge uptick when Jay Hill came in. And so I have to believe that is part of this thinking is, hey, is Kalani the main reason or is Jay the main reason? And if we keep Kalani, but that means Jay Hill has no path to being a head coach, does he walk? And what does that mean? And so we're playing this interesting game theory game right now that we're seeing unfold before our eyes. And I will say, I don't know what's right. Best case is we have Kalani and Jay as the assistant. But I can't believe Jay's going to be content with that for much longer.
Yeah.
And so BYU has a decision to make. Do they back Jay as the future or do they back Kalani? And it's going to be interesting what happens.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. There's two sides of this. The side that I shared was very much a Kalani side, right? That's what Kalani feels. I don't know if BYU values Kalani the same way Penn State does. I don't know if it's necessarily an issue of can BYU afford it, although it is a pretty dang high dollar amount. If he goes to Penn State, he'll probably be top 5, top 10 highest paid coaches in the NCAA.
Yeah, it's somewhat. I think the church doesn't want to, even though absurd is the norm. The church who owns BYU is in a place that just because it's the norm, they don't want to sign up for that. And so if they give him a 10-year, $80 million deal, but then Jay leaves and things are in a bad spot in a couple of years, we're in a place like a lot of these other programs where if we move on, we have to do a $50 million plus buyout. And that just looks horrible for a religious church-owned institution to be on the hook for $50 million in a buyout. And so I do think that it's part of who we sign up for as BYU fans, that they do have to put things through a little bit of a different filter from a PR standpoint and from a money that they feel like they are totally committed to standpoint.
Yeah, you will not see BYU putting themselves in the same situation as Penn State when they hired James Franklin, right? They're never gonna feel like they can't let a guy go because of a buyout clause. And that's not to say, I actually don't know if BYU is really that quick to pull the trigger anyway, which is another reason why Kalani would likely stay or could stay or should stay, right? Is BYU just doesn't. He went 5-7 one year,
yeah,
and had a terrible season. Croton went, how many losing seasons in a row before he got fired, and he only got fired because there was
a scandal.
And so like I don't think BYU is super quick to pull the plug on any coach. I mean, you look at even volleyball and soccer and baseball, like the only guys that are getting let go, Mike Littlewood got let go because of scandal, right? Like they retain their coaches. They give their coaches chances as long as they are doing it the right way. And Kalani is the epitome of doing things the right way, according to BYU. And now to your point, though, like, can Jay Hill do the same thing and win games as well? Like, there's obviously an expectation still to win games. Fans are going to get a little bit antsy if Jay Hill comes in and doesn't have the same type of success as Kalani. And to your point, maybe he's contributed a lot to the success that Kalani's had over the last 2 years. But I do think that is really that it's going to come down to that is who does BYU, Brian Santiago and Shane Reese, like who do they value more? And they're going to say, like, obviously we want Kalani to stay if Kalani's willing to accept the terms that we give him based on our valuation of him and how much we think he's worth. Is that $6 million? Is that $7 million? Like Kyle's at what, 6.2 or 6.3 million base, but Kyle has like massive incentives even after retirement. And so is BYU willing to make those types of concessions for Kalani? Or do they say, let's just let him pursue his dream and chase the money? And when I say chase the money, I don't think that's what Kalani's trying to do. I think he's just trying to show, he's trying to like see what he's actually worth.
There's a part of it that's chasing the money.
There's definitely money. I mean, obviously there's money involved, right? But like this wouldn't, we all want money. We all want like to make what we think we're worth. We all want to feel valued at our job.
Yeah.
And I think he feels like he's not being valued at his job. But to his point, like, does BYU actually value him what he is worth? Or would they prefer to have a Jay Hill type of guy come in and make 3, 4, or 5 million and be content with that and stay long term? And, despite his health issues and despite his ties with Utah and other schools, right? Like, is Jay committed as long-term as Kalani would be? Like, you got to weigh all of these things. And I'm just glad I'm not in that position to have to make that decision, because it's going to be a tough decision either way. You're either spending a ton of money for a guy that, wants to be here long-term, but could go at any point, or let him leave and suffer the potential consequences. And that kind of leads us to the next point, which is you're not only, if Kalani goes to Penn State, you're not only losing your head coach and a head coach that's been here for 10 years and a head coach that wants to be here for 30 more years, right? You're losing potential staff and you're losing potential players.
Correct. And so, I mean, Bear, just be real, Bear's going to have big NIL offers thrown at him. He's not a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so he doesn't have that same tie-in to the institution that a lot of the players do. And yeah, like who's to say that he wouldn't leave if there's a big shakeup? LJ has a choice to make of NFL or play college football for another year, and how would this change that? Satuala, where we see what it means to have 4-star guys on the defense, the best player from the state of Utah a couple years ago. He was very much a Jay Hill recruit, and Jay Hill pushed some old guys out at safety to give him space and time this year, but
he was still a coin flip guy, though. Right?
Correct. Correct.
So if the uncertainty of your head coach leaving, does that flip his decision?
Ryder Lyons, does he, who was originally a USC commit, like, does he want to go to a place that feels unstable? Stability is the safest place to be right now. Here's the other thing, though. I really, really like Brian Santiago, and he's given us no reason to not think that he can manage this. And I point to, he was key in when Mark Pope left and it felt like the sky was falling. He had a plan and connections in place that no one knew. And now Mark Pope is in the hot seat and losing games at Kentucky, and BYU basketball's never been better. So again, I am team let's stay for stability, but I do think that even though with all those risks, I think BYU with Brian Santiago at the helm of the athletic department is in a place that he can navigate this and get us to a winning spot.
Cougar Nation, get ready to upgrade your game day comfort. We launched the Cougar Couch Crew Collection, a lineup built for fans who bring passion to the bleachers and the couch. From the True Blue Couch BYU hat in adult and youth sizes to the heavyweight Royal Blue Stadium tee to the ultra-soft Provo Cougars crew neck. This drop delivers premium comfort with unmistakable Cougar pride. Relaxed, ready, completely true blue. Visit store.cougarboard.com to shop the Cougar Couch Crew Collection today and cozy up in your fan gear while supplies last. Cougar alumni know what it means to rise and shout, and that's exactly what True Wear Services helps your business do. They specialize in merch production, swag, uniforms, custom printing, and design, plus web stores and fulfillment. So repping your company, team, and school is seamless. You've built the brand, now it's time to showcase it. Partner with True Wear Services today and give your organization the same pride and polish you showed in Cougar Blue. Go to truewearservices.com/cougarboard to get started. It's funny that you mentioned Kevin Young, because I think that also kind of leads into this perception of, not feeling value. You look at Kevin Young and his 1 year of success. It was a great year of success, and I'm not taking anything away from it. He got a decent extension after that year. I don't know what the terms were. I don't know how long it was, but it was a long-term extension after a single year of success. And not only that, but Brian's obviously committed to putting a lot of resources into basketball, like an obscene amount of resources, and BYU fans love it, right? BYU fans are all in favor of it, but BYU seems to be, in terms of perception, now reality, I don't know, we're not in the athletic department, but the perception is that BYU basketball seems to be the kind of the favorite child, right, of the athletic department. And so I don't know if Kalani views that same perception. That seems to be kind of the rumor going around, is that he's looking at what Kevin Young is getting in terms of resources, and getting in terms of pay, in terms of staffing, in terms of NIL recruiting money. He sees all that and he says, why am I not getting this?
I've heard Brian say multiple times directly, firsthand, that he views football as number one, that is the engine that has the whole athletic department go. That being said, I do understand some of the football team's qualms are, look, basketball has their own fully dedicated to them facilities that they have full control over. Meanwhile, BYU, especially once it gets cold and they need to practice indoors, they're battling all sorts of different departments, intramurals, clubs that are practice in the indoor practice facility. And that causes tension. The whisperings even this week is that there's an ultimate frisbee thing going on. There's a kickball tournament going on. When I was at BYU, the jiu-jitsu club would practice in there, and I could just see how it upset the football team that they're having to kind of go around us. And that's still a thing, and it does kind of rub people the wrong way in their biggest game of the year, that they're having to schedule practices around some of these clubs in their practice facility.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about the UCF game, but first, Sean put in our rundown and highlighted it in yellow. Can we talk about the wish list here, because I totally forgot to talk about this at the beginning. Cougar Board has the Cougar Board store, and we've talked about the drop this week, but I really love this idea. They're doing a wish list, right? So if you go to the Cougar Board merch store, you see anything you like, you can add it to a wish list and share that wish list on social media. You can choose 8 items from the Cougar Board store. You download your wish list image, you share it with friends and family, and then you have to follow and tag Cougar Board on social media. And then next Friday through Sunday, they're going to select one winner per day. Each winner will get every item on their wish list completely free. So
there's 2 benefits to this and why you should do it as a listener. One, you have a chance to get everything you put on social on your wish list for free. 2 is this is the time of year everyone around you is like, what the heck do we get this guy? He already has everything he wants. What do we get him? Yeah. Now you're just putting it out there of, hey, this is my wish list. So, you go to Cougar Board, you click in the 3 lines on the left, go to the merch store, and then right top and center it says wish list. You click it, you put your name in, you fill it out, gives you a nice little graphic for you to post onto social. piece of cake, win stuff, let your friends know what they should buy you.
It's also pinned right now at the top of the top recent threads. If you just go to cougarboard.com, it'll be right on the homepage. And then we'll also include a link to the actual post itself in our show notes. Okay, let's transition now to UCF. This was a game that I don't think even down 14, I didn't feel incredibly nervous. I just felt frustrated because we went into this game thinking BYU's got to win by 40, right? They got to win by 30 or 40. Style
Statement
points.
game. Yeah.
Eye test, right? Like these stupid things that shouldn't factor into these catch-all metrics or into even, considerations by the committee, and somehow it does. And so going down 14-0, it just felt gross. It felt like BYU put themselves in a hole and made themselves look bad, and they did. They looked pretty bad. And it's frustrating because it could have, to me, in my opinion, this could have been prevented by just starting the guys you normally start.
So this is a take that I didn't notice and I don't hear anyone else talking about. I wasn't aware that we didn't have our normal starters.
We had a lot of starters, right? Because it was Tanavasa, Jack Kelly, Tanner Wall was still in the back. We still had a lot of starters because a lot of seniors are starters. But on the corners, they did not start Therian Alexander or Evan Johnson.
Huh.
It was Mo Bamba and was it McKenzie or Dunlap? Anyway, there was someone else on the other side. So it wasn't a full defensive lineup of starters. They started seniors, right?
Yeah.
And I get it. Like Kalani wants to get his seniors minutes and like he wants them to be in the box score as starting a game. I get it. It's very much a Kalani thing. To me, it was probably a big reason why UCF scored. Now, granted, like BYU had him on third and 4 or whatever, and the guy just could not be brought down.
Yeah, exactly. That was my take. It's football's such a game of inches, and on both of their first possessions they scored, you saw that where we had the right blitz dialed up. We had guys all around him, and if we would have been 2 inches closer, we had guys' arms around his waist, or he was falling down and flicks this perfect pass. Like, we should have sacked him and just ended it, but he was able to have the peace of mind in that situation and the athleticism to throw this crazy pass, and then once that happened, we were in trouble.
Yeah. So UCF has 142 total yards in the first quarter. They got 16 total in the second quarter, 69 in the third, 69 in the fourth. Nice. Again, I'm not going to say that's why, because then you bring in your starters in the second series, and in fact your offense shoots themselves in the foot with Barrett, not knowing how to scramble upfield. He somehow turns around and fumbles the ball and recovers it and loses 10 yards. So they put themselves behind the sticks early as well, and so there was kind of a momentum thing. But I think the momentum could have been affected a little bit more had starters been in, had all the starters been in and not just seniors on that first defensive possession. But in the end, it didn't matter because Jay Hill made adjustments. The starters came in and they figured it out. Some key plays of this game, obviously, and Parker's was monumental in this game. LJ got his yardage. I think he had over 90 yards still. Like, he still played a good game, very much an LJ game, over 4 yards a carry, fairly efficient and productive game. But in terms of like explosion plays, Parker Kingston was the guy.
Yeah, his punt return was huge. Like, that was a legit punt return because he had multiple guys in front of him. Makes a guy miss and then just looked like an artist. Just he saw, hey, here's what I got to do. And then again, he had the kicker who really was right in front of him, had the angle, and he looked like a legit punt returner on that. And then he did have that one should have been touchdown where he fell down, like trying to get that extra burst, and then he fell down. But then he had another chance at that and found the burst and beat all the DBs to the end zone. Parker has been amazing all year, and this was his best game so far.
Can't remember who. I think it was BYU Stats Man posted that Parker is the first or maybe second BYU player to have a rushing touchdown, or receiving touchdown, and a punt return for a touchdown in the same season. Last year, he also had a passing touchdown, not this year. It's funny because I thought for sure last year he had a rushing touchdown. So I thought he had all 4 last year. He did not have a rushing touchdown last year. For somehow, some way, he did not. He had a 20-yard carry, I think, against somebody, but he had a 20-yard carry, no rushing touchdowns. But he has been our big kind of home run ball player. Him and Chase to an extent, but Chase obviously not in this game. But it's been part. So 6 catches on 8 targets. He was Bear's favorite target of the game. 126 yards and a touchdown. By the way, Bear 21 of 25, 289 yards and a touchdown. 194 rating. That's the highest since West Virginia and the 3rd highest of the year. He had a phenomenal, kind of a quiet, efficient passing game.
Yeah, and there was at least one drop that I could remember too. I had no idea watching the game that he was 21 for 25. Driving home and they're talking about that on the radio, I'm like, 21 for 25 is crazy. And JoJo had the one bounce off his pads.
Good for one of those a game, I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then he makes some crazy catches too.
He's like Todd Watkins. Remember Todd
Watkins?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, like if Bear seems to be really coming into his own from a comfortability. No one questions his arm. And what's awesome is he did this. This was the game. It's like, how injured is he? He looked very injured against Cincinnati.
He didn't run it very much this game, so he still could be.
Yeah, but his arm throws just fine.
Yeah.
He looked great on the deep balls, medium balls, short balls. Like, I loved what I saw out of Bear in this game.
Yeah. So BYU finishes the season with 11 wins. And so now we move into this kind of postseason chapter of our 2025 BYU football season, and again, I mentioned this kind of at the beginning of the show that it just feels somber. Like it feels like 11 wins meant nothing really, because you still have to go and beat a top 5 team on a neutral field, but it's essentially a home field, right? It's in Texas, it's in Arlington. I don't know how far Arlington is from Lubbock, but it's closer than Salt Lake City or than Provo, right? So it just feels like a very daunting task to beat a team that just beat you by 30. And if you don't, then you're basically in the same bowl game you were last year, right? I think Alamo is probably, I don't know if there's another bowl game that doesn't have a specific conference affiliation tie or a conference tie that's better than the Alamo Bowl, but in terms of like the best bowl games for the Big 12, it's Alamo Bowl and it's Pop-Tarts Bowl, right?
Yeah, it's most of the people are saying Alamo against USC, which that's a fun matchup, but that we deserve more.
It's not playoff.
Correct.
And it's not New Year's 6, right? They've done away with kind of the New Year's 6 and moved those into the playoff. It now feels like a disservice because there is no real fallback if you don't make the playoff.
And what is so frustrating is you just can't make sense of it logically. Because when you look at the strength of record, we're the number 6 team. We've only lost 1 game, and there's a lot of teams ahead of us that have lost 2. And then you start looking at even some of the ones that have lost 1, and we have better data and stats than them. It is clear, and this is what feels so freaking frustrating about it, that the ESPNs of the world, the SEC and Big Tens, have decided we're keeping BYU out. Like you see that in the way they frame things. Even the scroll at the bottom of the ESPN screen. When it showed our win, the comment was BYU comes back from 14-0. When it shows Miami's game right after that, it's Miami caps an amazing season. Like they are framing it, and the thing that's really ticking me off is they're just not even. There's no shame in when they just exclude us. They just look at, hey, who should be in, and they have all these options. But the team that has better data than everything they're showing on the screen, they don't even have on there. They don't even put BYU on there. They just want people to forget about us. And it's like, this is freaking bullcrap.
Yeah, I think that's the most frustrating part out of all this is that it's not even the CFP committee, because the CFP committee, they meet, they take it seriously, right? You hope they do, right? People claim corruption and they claim, ulterior motives. Like, I get it. That's fine if you want to think that's happening behind closed doors. But the fact that ESPN is literally showing a graphic that says these are the bubble teams, right? These are the teams that are on the bubble. You have to look at that graphic and you have to think they either assume BYU's in or BYU's not even in the conversation for a bubble. And the latter's more likely, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that's frustrating. They're talking about Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama, Miami even. And Miami doesn't even play another game.
Texas is getting a lot of push.
Texas is in the conversation, right? With 3 losses. Vanderbilt's in the conversation, and BYU's not. And to me, that's more frustrating because, like, the committee, I believe, is influenced somewhat by media perception or public perception. And I want to go into a little bit the kind of catch-all metrics too, because people say like, oh, it's just numbers, it's facts. Even the SOR, right? The SOR favors BYU this year. The FPI doesn't, right? There's other things that don't favor BYU. The fact is, though, even these catch-all advanced metrics, there is an element of human bias.
Yeah, how you set it up.
Because there has to be an input, right?
Yeah.
So when you take a catch-all metric, you're supplying it with data, and you're saying, I want you to weigh this more heavy than this. I want you to weigh this this game against this team or this conference. Or a road game or a home game, I want you to weigh them differently. I want you to weigh these players better than these players. I want you to weigh players that were recruited highly or 5-star recruits according to 24/7 and have committed to this team. These blue chip players that are determined by humans to be blue chip players. I want you to factor that into this catch-all metric that I'm going to use to then determine who is ranked higher than another team. And the biggest kind of fault in all of this is that Penn State is still in the top 20 in terms of FPI.
It's crazy.
Right? And we've talked about how BPI, BPI is basketball version of FPI. We've talked about kind of the faults and the downsides of using BPI. FPI is similar. Now, FPI is not necessarily a bad metric, right? It's similar to what they use to determine odds, right? Vegas they don't use FPI, but they use a formula or function or a catch-all that's similar to that to predict outcomes of games and outcomes of seasons for teams. And so I'm not saying it's necessarily an entirely flawed metric, but when you're using it to determine to determine resumes, right? Who earned a position in this event, in this playoff, to use a catch-all metric like FPI, or to use a single catch-all metric, even SOR, right? To me it's disingenuous, and it negates the fact that those metrics are still factored in by some sort of human bias.
Yeah.
And to take that even a step further, then is that there's this like long-lasting then perception, right? The SEC has been the dominant conference of college football for over a decade, right?
Yes.
Maybe even longer, right?
2 decades.
2 decades. And so, like, I get it. You have to look at the SEC and say they are, until someone knocks them off, right? As Drake Toll has said, the Santa Claus theory, right? Someone has to knock them off. I think the Big 12's getting there. Big 10. Big 10 is getting there. Big 12, I think, has a long way to go. And so if we're going to take a step back, let's just to even say, let's kind of think of this more level-headed and not be so emotional about this. The fact is, the Big 12 lost its 2 best teams in terms of perception.
Correct.
Right? Texas and Oklahoma.
Yes.
And so in the public's mind, in the media's mind, the Big 12 is essentially an ACC 2.0 at this point. Maybe even a Pac-12. I don't know. Maybe they're even worse than the Pac-12 was. I don't know in terms of public perception. But how does BYU get out of, and not just BYU, how does the Big 12 get out of that perception? And is it going to take 2 decades?
So that's what actually is the stupidest thing on this, is the only way we will really know, because there's so many teams in college football. The only way you really know who's better is let them play on the field. But if they're using a lot of these recruiting metrics and preseason polls to really weigh things, then you don't actually give these Big 12s and these other teams a chance to even show they're better. Mm-hmm. Like, how can we watch Georgia struggle against Georgia Tech and still think, hey, the SEC's unbeatable? How can we see Florida State beat Alabama and think the SEC's unbeatable?
Or Florida beat Texas.
But they just build that up, and then they want 4 or 5 SEC teams in and 1 Big 12 team in. And so you don't even get a chance to have it play out. And so that's where if the Big 12 after this season having 2 11-1 teams, if they only get 1 team in, then the system needs to change. It's a broken system, and it's responding to the wrong incentives.
Yeah, but I think even then, and I agree that 2 11-1 teams should be in, right? Automatically, they should be in. They should at least be in a major bowl. And the problem is, though, they have to prove it, right?
Correct.
Texas Tech has to go to the college football playoff and win 2 games, right? They need to get to the semis or the finals.
We needed ASU to figure out a way to finish Texas last year. They had them on the ropes. It was like 4th and forever. Gave up a pass. Dang it, man. We had a chance last year to have a different talking point this year.
Yeah, for sure, because we could have had, but even then, ASU, I still think you need to go further, right? Like TCU in the championship game, but then TCU goes in and they get blown out in the championship game. It's like you have to, on the biggest stage, you have to that's what the SEC has done. Ohio State has done this, right?
Yeah.
Oregon has done this, right? So you not only have to make it now to the playoff and have multiple teams get in the playoff, but you have to win games in the playoff. And then if BYU doesn't make it in, they have to go and smoke whoever they play in the Alamo Bowl, similar to Colorado last year, except it was a double-edged sword because Colorado is also in the Big 12. So you have to be able to beat teams from other better, higher ranked conferences.
And we were going to be ranked top 15 in the preseason polls, and then we had a quarterback change, and it's like
perception.
We had to start at the bottom of the again. And he back to my ESPN ticking me off thing. Out of nowhere, it goes against everything we've ever seen. They start showing this week record against teams that were ranked when you played them.
I hate that. Oregon does it with Penn State.
It's so stupid. Because then it's just, again, it's playing into how supported and puffed up the preseason polls were. And it's like, who cares about when you played them? It's never mattered before. It's who finishes ranked at the end of the year and what was your record against those teams. But BYU wins again in the comparison in those metrics. So they're just changing the paradigm. Ticks me off. I'll be shocked if tomorrow the playoff committee has the cojones to put us in the top 10. So I think it comes down to BYU has to win. And where I've framed it in my mind is that it will be so fulfilling, and I will have a perma-smile knowing they tried to keep us out. But BYU, against the odds, stacked against us, blew the doors open, got us in. Texas Tech is ranked high enough they would still be in. And we forced our way to have 2 teams in. And that's where we're at. It will be more fulfilling when that happens, but it's freaking BS that we're in this situation.
This episode is brought to you by Aptive Pest Control. Aptive believes that every home should be enjoyed. They tailor their pest control treatment plans to target pests when and where they're most active. Plus, if you see pest activity between treatments, Aptive will return to take care of the problem at no additional cost. It's their way of making sure every customer is satisfied and every pest is controlled. If pests stay away, Aptive is why. Visit AptivePestControl.com/loyalcougars or call 844-966-4787. Mention this promotion to get your initial treatment for just $29. That's AptivePestControl.com/loyalcougars or call 844-966-4787. Terms and conditions apply. Get home field advantage with Aptive. I responded to someone on X. It was kind of it was very much an unserious take on my end, but it was replying to, I believe, a serious take, which was the ACC should consider, and this was before before Cal had beat SMU. So this was kind of assuming like, hey, let's assume that Duke and Virginia are in the ACC championship game. By the way, they are now, right? So this assumption was if that happens, the ACC should seriously consider basically executive order, right? And saying we're not going to put Duke in the ACC championship game because they don't deserve it. We're going to put Miami instead. Yeah. And so I replied to that and I said, well, we're just making up the rules. Let's just say the Big 12 is not going to put Texas Tech in the conference championship game because they're already in the playoff, right? We don't need them to play in the conference championship game. Yeah. Let's instead put BYU and Utah or BYU and West Virginia for that matter and say the winner of that game goes to the conference championship or goes to the playoff. Then you're automatic to bid conference.
Yeah, it's a clown show anyway. We might as well lean into it.
Totally. Like why does Ohio State and Indiana, why are they playing in a conference championship? They're both in. If the Big Ten really wants to have another team in, guaranteed, why don't they have a Michigan and a USC play in the conference championship game? Like, if you really wanted those your conference champion to be in, then why not have teams that aren't guaranteed at large bids? Why don't you have them play in the conference championship game? I know it's not a serious take, but I'm saying the point of it is that these conference championship games are somewhat meaningless, right? Because Oregon's not going to play in a conference championship game. They have no way. And that's when you say like you'll have a perma smile on your face if BYU makes it in the top 10. It's not going to happen because the teams ahead of them don't play.
Yeah.
Oklahoma doesn't play. Ole Miss doesn't play. Notre Dame doesn't play. Alabama doesn't play. And people are thinking Miami's going to jump into the top 10. They don't play another game. How are they going to jump into the top 10?
Yeah.
The only way BYU gets in is if the committee looks at Ole Miss and they say they don't have their head coach. They're likely losing most of their staff and potentially losing a lot of their players, and they're not going to play in the playoff. And so we're going to bump them out of the top 10. We're going to put BYU in. That's the only way. The only way I could see BYU getting into the top 10. And then ironically, if they lose in the conference championship game, they probably fall back to 11 and Miami jumps them into the top 10. I see that happening. That's assuming that, again, the committee drops Ole Miss, right? But that is a scenario I could see playing out. And it would be frustrating, but let's not get frustrated over hypotheticals. For now, BYU still controls their own destiny, which is nice, right? You can still go in and win that game. If you have a healthy LJ Martin, then I think you still give yourself a chance. And, obviously we'll be cheering our lungs out. I don't know if you're going to that game. I'd love to go to that game.
I have flights. Yeah, so I booked those yesterday. Me and my son are going.
So cheer loud for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
But that at least BYU is in that position. And that is a positive, right, to take out of this.
Yeah. No, it's been a fun, incredible season because especially considering where we were even as fans and as podcasters at the beginning of the year when we realized we were going to be starting a freshman quarterback and had a heck of a tough gauntlet of a schedule. No one thought we were going to go 11-1, but here we are.
You did.
That is true. I had some sort of feeling we'd only lose one. And here we are. And even then, though, I knew it was a bold take. but we did it. And now we got to win one more. And either way, this has been a fun ride.
Yeah, you should have put money on it. Okay, really, really quick, shifting gears. We got about 10-ish minutes. We're not timed, by the way. We can go as long as we want. We can go 5 hours if we want. But we got a day job. So let's take 5-10 minutes, talk about BYU basketball. Miami and Dayton, I thought they played pretty well. Let's start, though, with the Kennard Davis suspension, right? Suspended for 2 games after an alleged DUI, right? We don't know what substance it was, right? He's obviously driving to the airport to go to a game with his team. And so I think I have to imagine he's not that oblivious and that dumb to just take a drink at 10 o'clock in the morning and drive to the airport, right? So, but nobody knows. Like, the fact is nobody knows what happened. And so you've got a lot of fans, specifically fans up north, that are very interested in the honor code all of a sudden, as they are when something like this happens. And so I found a post on X, and I actually don't know if this guy's a Utah fan. He's like a former Utah Jazz editor, I guess, for their website. I don't know. Ryan Kosteka. I don't know him personally, but he said BYU is held to different standards because they hold themselves to different standards. Fans don't get to spout superiority because of the honor code and then look the other way when it's broken. And to me, like, I don't necessarily want to call him out specifically, but I've seen this sentiment, right? This is kind of the holier than thou sentiment, which is if you guys are going to hold yourself to a higher standard, then it needs to be consistent across the board. I don't think any BYU fan looks at the honor code and says we are superior morally than other schools because we have an honor code that is so strict. I think most BYU fans think the honor code is actually more detrimental to a player. We've talked about this, right? We had Brian Logan on the show to talk about this. Like, I think the honor code historically has been a more detrimental detractor from BYU athletics than it's been a help.
And fully agree. And how can you look at the history and even recent history of how BYU has treated the honor code and not then think, well, hey, there must be some info here because BYU doesn't go light. Like that.
Historically, they haven't.
Correct. Yeah. And so there must be some information that the public is not privy to that led to this shaking out the way that it did. I do know that the coaching staff was with him all morning and was driving behind him in the car.
Yeah.
He didn't cause the wreck. Someone else hit him. And then I won't dive into the things that I've heard after that, but at the same time, there's more to the story than is being reported, and that there's high confidence from the beginning that this wouldn't be as bad as it first seemed, and that's how it's shaken out. And and heck of a game. His first game back, he's our leading scorer.
Absolutely.
To help us beat Miami, which again, tough road for him. It's not like he got no punishment. He had his name was on the front page of ESPN for days, and he had to sit out multiple games. Like, this is an embarrassment for him and his family. And I did smile that he was able to bounce back and do what he does to help this team.
Which kind of leads us to the next point, which is the BYU starting lineup might be the best in the country. Like, when the starters are in, specifically AJ Ritchie and we've talked about this before, but and Rob Wright, and then you add Kennard to the mix. Keba obviously offers his benefits as well on the defensive end. I think that's the best starting lineup in the country. The bench has to step up. They have to do more than they've done against Dayton.
Baker going down, and I don't have any inside info here, but just from the optics, it looks like he's out for the season.
Yeah.
And that was horrible, because he is a guy that can come in and hit some big shots, play some minutes, bring the ball up.
I'm pretty sure I saw a picture of him in a wheelchair.
Correct.
Yeah.
After the Dayton game, he was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And so, and we had 0 points from the bench in the Dayton game.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's not sustainable. It is very different than last year's team. Last year's team, I felt like our bench was basically just as good as our starters. This year, not even in the same ballpark. If our starters stay healthy, it's fine. But it does make us vulnerable to injuries, devastating us, or if we have foul trouble games.
Yeah, I mean, it helped last year that we had Foose,
Dallin Hall.
We had Boscovich was better somehow last year than he is this year. Dawson Baker also was off the bench, right? He came off the bench as well. And so, the bench was pretty deep. And we're just not seeing that from, like, Tyler Morus needs to step up. Like, we brought him in to be a 3-point shooter and a pretty decent offensive threat, and he's just not that. But Boscovich is not a defensive guy. He's brought in to score.
Yeah. And
if he's not doing that, he's not valuable to BYU. And I think actually the most value we've gotten from our bench is Kadeem Boop.
Correct. But he's been starting, so he won't count against the bench. It'll be interesting if he ends up a full-time starter or not. But
who did he start against?
Well, he has started this season, and especially with Baker out, I think I would not be shocked to see them going forward, them starting Keba and Boop.
Yeah, I mean, I would not like that, right? Because you've got Keda's not a shooter, right?
Correct. Then you have two guys that can't shoot threes.
We've talked about this before. You've got to have 4 guys on the floor that can shoot the ball. You got to space out the offense, especially when Keba's not a pick and pop guy at all. And then you bring in Boop. He's not a, and Boop's actually undersized for a 5. I mean, I put him maybe at the 4, and he's not a stretch 4 by any stretch of the imagination. And so, I would not want that. I actually prefer to have Boop off the bench, because he can spell Keda.
Yeah,
that's the other thing too. Is so the problem is here. You've got potentially the best starting lineup in the country. You've got okay backups in every position except the 5. Like, when Keba comes out, they really struggle at the 5, and I think Boop holds his own for a little bit, but he's not Foose. He's not Fusini, right?
Correct.
And so he's not really a true offensive threat. The other thing I'll say too, and I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, and I've said this, I've kind of hinted at this in the past. I think for as athletic and long as Keba Keita is, he's not a great defender. And what I say by that,
you got people yelling at
what I say by that
devices right now.
What I mean by that, when I say that, is he overcommits. Right, he's very kind of the very jittery, overcommit on-ball defender. He's a great help defender, right?
Yes.
When a guy's driving to the lane, even on a pick and roll, guys driving to the lane, he's a very good off-ball shot blocker. And so, like, I give him credit for that. But he's not when he's one-on-one with a guy, even a guy that he's supposed to be guarding, he's not great at it.
No, he's an incredible rim protector. He's incredible at fast break, chase down blocks, at help defense at the rim. You're absolutely right. If you have a guy, if he's guarding a guy at the perimeter, the way that he kind of like, jittery is a good word for it, but he kind of like leaves his feet and jumps a lot as he's getting out there, and it makes it pretty easy for them to drive right by him.
Yeah. And so he's got to learn to stay on his feet. And I'll say this too, like, again, he's a phenomenal shot blocker. He can jump out of the gym. He's got to rebound better, and BYU as a team has to rebound better. We say this every game, and this is going to be the theme, I think, for the whole year, right? They had a theme last year. I don't remember what it was, but they had themes, right? They have a theme every year. This year, it's rebounding. They've got to rebound better.
And going back to our bench, I do think Boop, Diamande, Maruss, those three will develop and get better, and that can be a solid core. And then they're just who's the next guy? Is it Boscovich? Is it Kostic? Is it somebody else? Like it'll be interesting. But I do believe in this staff. We saw it last year. And we've seen it even with Boop, how he's developed, that they're going to continue to develop these guys and make them so they're serviceable players off the bench.
Every time I hear Boop, I think of just Boop.
Exactly. That needs to be a commercial at some point.
Yeah. Okay, and they will have a chance, right? So the rest of the non-conference schedule is fairly manageable. Clemson, obviously, on December 9th. That's going to be a tough matchup. Other than that, it's cupcakes, right? It's Cal Baptist, UC Riverside, Pacific, Abilene Christian, Eastern Washington, and then your first conference game on January 3rd against Kansas State. So they've got time to develop. Mm-hmm. Clemson at Madison Square Garden could very well be a loss, and I wouldn't be surprised, nor would I be incredibly depressed, disappointed. Obviously I still think they're a top 15 team, but they've still got some growing pains that they have to go through, and they will go through those, and they'll go through them in conference too. But I hope that this non-conference schedule at least is preparing them for what is going to be a pretty daunting. Did you see TCU out of nowhere beating they beat Wisconsin, right? Who BYU blew out, but
then they beat Florida, didn't they?
I think they beat Florida, yeah. And so like TCU out of nowhere, right? We're talking about Arizona and Kansas and Houston. Like TCU out of nowhere is Texas Tech's got a good team, Cincinnati's got a good team, right?
Our worst rate. I mean, it's early, and some of these guys are playing nobodies, but TCU's not. Our worst overall record in all of the Big 12 is 5-2.
Yeah,
and this conference is
that
good.
Utah?
No, it's actually TCU. TCU, Kansas State, and Cincinnati are all 5-2. Utah is 6-2 with 2 losses coming to horrible teams. Yeah. Utah's not in a good spot, but still. The Big 12 has been whooping up on the Big 10 and the ACC and the SEC. Mm-hmm. We're looking good. It looks like Big 12 is back as the best conference.
Big 12 is back. We're in a good spot. As somber as it does feel, we are in a good spot as fans. BYU football, BYU basketball, they are in a good spot. BYU still controls their own destiny. They still could make the college football playoff. That all starts this week with Texas Tech in Arlington. We'll talk about it next week. Hopefully we'll have news about Kalani staying. And if he's gone, then hopefully we'll have news about who the next head coach is. That is all coming up next week on the Loyal Cougars podcast. But for now, I'm your host, Jake Edmonds. That is Tosh McIntosh. We will see you later.
Have a good one.